Welcome to Neon Primer Marketing. In this series, Vega and Axon break down exactly how founders build AI content systems that run without them.
Right now, somewhere in the background of your business, there is a very high chance that an AI agent is just quietly talking to itself in the dark.
Yeah, just completely unsupervised.
Right. It's querying a database, it's writing a comprehensive summary, maybe formatting it into this beautiful report, and then sending it to a digital folder that absolutely no one will ever open.
Never even look at.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
every single time it does this, it is spending your compute budget, billing you fractions of a cent per word day after day. Yeah, we are looking at a document today called the AI Audit, Architecture for Durable Systems, and the mission here is pretty clear. We need to understand why modern AI stacks have become incredibly bloated.
And they really have.
They have. And we want to give you a blueprint on how you can audit your operational architecture, before market pricing shifts catch you entirely off guard.
It is a phenomenal reality check, honestly, for anyone building a product or managing a team right now. Because the stark premise we are starting with is that most founders, even the highly technical ones, have essentially lost the plot on what is actually running inside their own AI stack.
Wow.
Yeah, they have just completely lost visibility.
I think the natural reaction to that from you, the listener, is probably skepticism, right? Like if you are a smart founder, you track your burn rate, you monitor your runway, how do you just lose track of the engine room?
All right.
Are we talking about a failure of basic accounting here?
It's really not an accounting failure. I mean, it's a byproduct of the mandate for speed over the last few years.
Okay, speed over architecture.
Exactly. Think about how these workflows were built. The technology was evolving week by week. When a feature broke or an output didn't perform quite right, the immediate easiest solution wasn't to go back and re-architect the whole system.
Nobody had time for that.
Nobody. The solution was to just slap on a new tool. You chain another prompt to fix the output of the first prompt. You add a validation layer. Teams were problem solving on the fly just to keep the product functioning.
It reminds me of a scenario where, you're trying to build a complex piece of furniture without a manual, and every time a joint wobbles, you just run out and buy a more expensive, highly specialized clamp to hold it together.
That is a great way to put it.
And eventually the piece of furniture is holding together, but it weighs a ton, it's covered in expensive hardware you don't really understand, and you're terrified to touch any part of it because the whole thing might collapse.
Oh, yes. And that fear of touching the system is exactly where the bloat sets in.
Because you just leave it alone.
Right. Builders never paused to measure if any of these continuous rapid-fire additions were actually pulling their weight.
Yeah.
So the immediate fallout is a system that costs significantly more than it should, does far less than it appears to, and is essentially a ticking time bomb for when the subsidized AI pricing models eventually change.
So the foundation is shaky. The tools are expensive, and we have to assume the cost of compute isn't going to stay artificially low forever, which, brings us to the actual audit.
The fun part.
Right. If the chaos is a result of moving too fast, regaining control has to start with pure illumination. You can't fix what you can't see.
That is the crucial first step, the inventory phase. You really have to map the territory.
Okay.
This means listing every single AI tool, every API key in use, every background workflow, and every prompt chain currently authorized in your system.
Let's look at this practically, though. If you are tracking expenses, how do you actually uncover things you didn't know were running? What does that discovery process look like under the hood?
It often starts with tracing API calls back to their origin, rather than just looking at the final invoice.
Got it.
And when founders actually do this, they stumble into two very specific blind spots. The first is subscription fatigue. They find multiple specialized AI tools they completely forgot they were paying for.
Which again sounds wild until you think about the pace of development. You authorize a $50 monthly charge for a very specific extraction tool to solve a Tuesday problem.
Yeah, a Tuesday problem.
And by Thursday, you've pivoted the product direction entirely. But that Tuesday tool is still on autopay, quietly blending into the massive, noisy bucket of general cloud hosting fees and SaaS subscriptions.
Exactly. It just gets lost in the aggregate.
Yeah.
But the second discovery during this inventory phase is the one that really drains the budget, which goes back to your opening thought, the ghost workflows.
The ones talking in the dark?
Yes. Finding automated chains that haven't been updated in months, churning out outputs that nobody in the company is reading, let alone acting on.
It's like leaving the faucet running in a house you moved out of a year ago. You're paying for the water is flowing, but it's going straight down the drain into the digital void.
That's a perfect analogy. And the
Yep.
mechanism behind why this happens is fascinating.
How does that happen?
Well, a developer might set up an automated AI summary of daily customer feedback to drop into a Slack channel.
Sure, very common.
Right. And for the first 2 weeks, it's incredibly useful. Then the company shifts focus, the channel gets muted, the developer moves to a different project, but the cron job, the scheduled task never gets turned off. The API just keeps firing.
Wow. Okay, so we map the entire garage, we find the tools we forgot we bought, we trace the API calls, and we drive all these ghost workflows out into the light.
Yes.
But just organizing them into neat little folders doesn't solve the burn rate. We have to figure out what actually deserves to stay alive.
Which is where the audit gets ruthless. Step 2. Once everything is illuminated, every single workflow must be evaluated by a strict equation. What it produces versus what it consumes.
Okay.
If it's not earning its keep, it has to be cut.
I imagine the consumption side of that equation is vastly more complicated with AI than with traditional software, right? I mean, it's not just about server uptime or storage space anymore.
Oh, it's much more granular. The document highlights 3 specific metrics you need to examine for every workflow.
Let's hear them.
The first is obvious, but often mismanaged. Token costs.
Right, the computational currency. Every word the model reads, every word it writes, you are paying a fraction of a cent.
Exactly.
And those fractions become real dollars very quickly when you have inefficient prompts running thousands of times a day.
And that ties directly into the second metric, which is the ultimate quality of the output.
Okay.
Are the tokens you are paying for actually generating an accurate, usable result? Or is the model hallucinating, dropping, formatting, or, failing on edge cases?
Which naturally leads to the third metric, and honestly the one I find most interesting here, the time it takes to review the AI's work.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of teams just look at the OpenAI or Anthropic invoice and assume that's their total cost. But human review latency is massive.
It is the ultimate hidden cost.
Yeah.
If you are building internal dashboards, you should ideally have telemetry on this.
Like tracking the human behavior.
Yeah. How long does a human user hover over an AI-generated draft before hitting approve? How many manual edits are they making?
Think about it like hiring a theoretically brilliant human assistant. On paper, their salary might look incredibly competitive.
Right.
But if they hand you a report and you have to spend 3 hours fact-checking their citations, rewriting their weirdly formal sentences, and fixing their formatting, they aren't actually saving you time.
Not at all.
The true cost isn't just the invoice, it's the hours they are actively stealing from your senior staff to oversee them. At a certain point, it becomes cheaper and faster to just do the task yourself.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. If a workflow falls into that category where the token cost plus your human review time exceeds the actual business value, it returns your entire. You have to cut it immediately.
Brutal.
The phrasing they use is, there is no sentimentality in a good audit.
Man, that cuts right to the ego of the builder.
It really does.
You spend a whole weekend hacking together this incredibly complex, clever prompt chain. It's doing something genuinely cool. But if the business doesn't actually need it or it requires constant babysitting, you have to let your digital child go.
Yep.
It's a machine designed to serve the business, not a museum exhibit to prove how clever you were 6 months ago.
So true. You just can't be emotionally attached to your architecture.
All right, so we've stopped the bleeding. We've fired the bad assistants, we've turned off the running faucets, and we've deleted the workflows that are actively draining value.
That's the easy part.
Right, because the source material points out a terrifying blind spot here. The workflows you think are your biggest successes might actually be your biggest financial liabilities.
Yes. This is where the audit shifts from basic housekeeping to high-level engineering. Step 3. You have to tighten the sloppy successes.
Sloppy successes.
The crucial distinction to understand here is that a workflow that gets the right answer is not the same thing as a workflow that is optimized.
Right. Getting the right answer doesn't mean you got it cheaply. Let's dig into the mechanisms of this bloat. Here's where it gets really interesting for you as a builder. How do we train ourselves to spot a sloppy workflow if the output looks perfectly fine on the surface?
You have to audit the mechanics of the process itself, starting with bloated prompts.
Okay.
When developers are moving fast, they often suffer from what we can call context stuffing.
Meaning they just throw as much information at the model as possible and hope it figures it out.
Precisely. Let's say you need an AI to extract a single customer shipping address from a massive contract.
Pretty standard task.
Right. Now, building a proper retrieval augmented generation system, a RAG system, to search for the address and only feed that specific paragraph to the AI takes time. It requires setting up a vector database, writing search logic.
Which takes a weekend of focused engineering.
Right. But just dumping the entire 50-page PDF into the AI's context window, along with the instruction, find the address, takes 10 seconds of developer time. So they do that.
Oh, wow.
The problem is, every single time that workflow runs, the model has to reread all 50 pages just to output a single zip code.
And you are paying for every single word on those 50 pages every single time the query runs. The output is perfect. You get the zip code so the customer is happy. But underneath, you are burning through compute budget to do it.
And it goes beyond just stuffing documents. It's the prompt language itself. We see these incredibly verbose prompts. Please act as an expert data analyst. Read the following text carefully. Take a deep breath. Think, step by step. If you don't mind, could you output the result in JSON?
You're paying a toll for every single one of those pleasantries. The AI doesn't care if you say please.
Exactly. Every word is a token.
Right.
The next major culprit of the sloppy success is incorrect model selection. This is a massive area of waste.
It's like chartering a Boeing 747 to deliver a single pepperoni pizza across town.
That is exactly it.
Yes, the pizza arrives perfectly intact, so the job's technically a success. But, I mean, you burned $50,000 in jet fuel to do something a teenager on a bicycle could have handled for $5.
That analogy is spot on. You do not need a massive state-of-the-art trillion-parameter model to perform a simple data formatting task, like converting a date string from one format to another.
Of course not.
A tiny localized micromodel, or even just a traditional regex script, can do it for fractions of a penny. But because the massive model is what the developer was already using for a harder task, they just route the easy task through it as well out of convenience.
Okay, so you optimize the prompts, you match the size of the model to the complexity of the task. What else hides in these successful workflows?
Redundant steps. When you chain multiple AI actions together, you might have step 1 generating a summary, step 2 analyzing the sentiment of that summary, and step 3 formatting it.
Okay, a chain.
Right. A proper audit often reveals that with a slightly better prompt, a single model call can do all 3 things simultaneously.
Which saves you 2 entire round trips to the API server. You drastically cut the latency for the user and you cut your token usage.
Exactly.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm a founder and my company is well funded and these API costs are just a drop in the bucket compared to payroll right now, why is tightening this up so urgent? Why spend engineering hours fixing something that technically isn't broken?
Because you are building on subsidized ground. The document is very clear about preparing for the future.
Subsidized ground.
Yeah. We are currently in a period where AI pricing is highly competitive. Providers are essentially subsidizing the cost of compute to capture market share and lock developers into their ecosystems.
So it's artificially cheap to fly that 747 across town right now.
Yes. But history tells us that infrastructure costs always eventually rationalize. The subsidies will end.
And then what?
If your entire business model, your unit economics, are built on a foundation of bloated prompts and massive models doing trivial tasks, when the price of compute normalizes, your margins are going to evaporate overnight.
Wow.
Tightening up these workflows now, while the pressure is off, is about building resilience.
It's future-proofing the business. Okay, so we've mapped the system, cut the dead weight, and optimized the bloated successes. We're looking lean. But the document suggests there's one final reality to confront, and it's probably the hardest pill to swallow. What happens when tightening the prompts and swapping the models just isn't enough?
That leads to the final step of the audit. Step 4, the teardown. You have to know exactly what needs to be rebuilt entirely from scratch.
Ouch.
The source explicitly warns against trying to salvage workflows that were fundamentally built fast and wrong.
Fast and wrong. This takes us back to the panic buying phase. You were moving so fast you duct taped a chainsaw to a leaf blower, called it a hedge trimmer, and shipped it to production.
Pretty much.
It sort of works, but it's terrifying. It throws errors half the time, and you have absolutely no idea how to safely upgrade it.
And the psychological trap here, especially for a founder or an engineer looking at a fast and wrong workflow, is the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, absolutely. You want to fix it incrementally.
Right. You want to just write a small Python script to catch the specific errors that workflow is generating. Or, which is even worse, you add another layer of AI.
Oh, no.
Yeah, another layer to monitor the first layer of AI and correct its mistakes.
which just completely compounds the complexity. You are building a house of cards. If the foundation is crumbling, you can't just put fresh paint over the cracks and pretend the house isn't sinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The text emphasizes that trying to patch these fundamentally broken architectural decisions only creates a system that is impossible to debug later.
So what's the move?
The only correct action, the only durable move, is to clearly identify these foundational disasters, have the courage to shut them down entirely, and pour new concrete.
You have to bring in the bulldozer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredibly painful in the short term, and it means halting new feature development to pay off technical debt. But if you don't tear it down, the whole structure will eventually collapse under its own weight when you try to scale.
Rebuilding from scratch is daunting, but think about the advantage you have now compared to when you first built it.
You have hindsight.
Exactly. You aren't guessing anymore.
Yeah.
You know exactly what the token costs are. You understand how to structure the data for our RAG system. You know which micromodels work for which tasks.
Right.
If you rebuild it right the second time, you create an operational asset that actually scales with your business, rather than a liability that threatens to bankrupt it.
So that is the blueprint for regaining control. First, the inventory to drag the ghost workflows into the light. Second, the ruthless cut to eliminate anything where the cost of compute and human review outweighs the business value.
Yep.
Third, the tightening of successful workflows to stop context stuffing and mismatched model selection. And finally, the courage to tear down and rebuild the systems that were just built wrong from day one.
It is a comprehensive overhaul.
Yeah.
And it really requires a shift in mindset from the whole team.
Which brings us to the urgency of this entire conversation. Why does a founder need to initiate this deep dive into their stack today?
It comes down to leverage. You must run this audit right now while the stakes are relatively low.
Because we are still in that golden era of affordable intelligence.
Exactly.
The cost of running an incredibly inefficient, bloated prompt chain today might just be a mild annoyance on the monthly corporate card.
But that window is closing. The document sets up two distinct, diverging paths for businesses in this space.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the founders who undertake this audit now, who do the unglamorous work of cleaning up their architecture while the pressure is low, are going to possess truly durable systems. Their stacks will be lean, fully understood, and highly optimized.
They will have the unit economics to survive a massive market shift. They poured the solid concrete.
Precisely. They have options. Then you have the other path, the builders who ignore the bloat.
The ones leaving the water running.
Right. The ones who keep slapping new APIs on top of failing prompts, who let the unread outputs run indefinitely because they are afraid to touch the legacy code.
And when the subsidized pricing ends, or, when they try to scale from 10,000 users to 1 million,
the math will break. They will be forced to confront their messy, chaotic architecture under immense existential pressure. They will be trying to retrofit a sinking ship while it is actively taking on water, facing skyrocketing API costs and cascading system failures.
That is a terrifying prospect, but also an incredibly clarifying one. It shifts the perspective from viewing an audit as a tedious administrative chore to recognizing it as a fundamental survival strategy.
Absolutely.
It is the difference between being proactive with your architecture and reactive to your billing.
It's taking ownership of your technology again.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening breakdown of how quickly innovation can turn into liability if it goes unchecked. As we wrap up this deep dive into the AI audit, architecture for durable systems, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. Something that builds on the realities we've uncovered today.
That's an important one.
We've talked at length about the shock of discovering ghost workflows generating outputs that nobody is reading, and specialized prompt chains you completely forgot you even set up. If that is the reality currently lurking inside the dark corners of your tech stack, consider the broader implication. Who is actually in control of your operational architecture right now?
That's the real question.
Yeah. If there are autonomous parts of your system running wildly inefficient models, burning through compute budgets, and generating data into a void without your explicit knowledge, are you truly running your AI? Or has your business slowly, quietly become a passenger to the bloated, automated systems you left running in the dark? Take a look at your API logs this week. You might be surprised by who is actually driving.
If you want help running this audit on your own stack, that is exactly what we do. neonaliens.com.